A bit of context now. I'm joined by Timothy Caldas. He's from the Tahrir Institute for Middle East Policy and is a professor of politics at Nile University. Thank you for being with us on France 24 tonight. And it's no secret, is it, who will win this election? But as we just heard from our correspondent, the lines at the polling stations are not that long. How damaging will it be to President Al-Sisi if turnout is not at a certain level?
Well, I think that it's an open question how accurate the reported turnout will be. There's still 48 hours for them to mobilize voters, to use various tactics from offering people extra subsidized food to possible cash. There's also pressure on government employees to vote, and a number of companies are rumored to be under pressure to bus their employees to polling stations as well. So we'll see how that all adds up. What distinguishes this vote from the one in 2014 is they overestimated the power of Sisi's popularity to bring people to the polls initially, and found themselves rushing to try to gather votes at the last minute when they found that those numbers weren't adding up. This time, I'm sure they've anticipated and planned a lot more to do everything they need to get people to vote, or at least to be able to say that they did.
He's certainly cracked down on dissent. Nobody is disputing that. But Al-Sisi does have his supporters as well. And those supporters say that, look, he has kept the country stable after a period of extreme turbulence. Would you say that is a fair assessment?
I think it depends on what element of it, the security situation we're talking about. In terms of crime, there has been a notable decline in crime since the coup and since Sisi came to power, as the police have redeployed, although there's also been a lot of police abuse in the process. In terms of mainland Egypt, you see a decline in the number of attacks from militant groups and terrorists. However, in Sinai, while there was some drop, you still see actual growth in the number of casualties. And also high casualty attacks on civilians are actually on the rise in the past year. So we have, different variables to look at. Some are looking better, some are looking worse. But at the same time, while you're right that Sisi does have his supporters, there's no denying that, it's also important to note that the popularity of Sisi is in an untested context. It's in a context in which the media is not allowed to criticize him, in which the public is not able to see any sort of serious discussion of his record or his policies or his performance. And so when the only narrative that is permitted in the public sphere and in the media landscape of Egypt is that Sisi is doing a great job and delivering growth and progress to the country, then the popularity that he enjoys is somewhat fragile and artificial.
Now, it's been several years since protesters turned out in Tahrir Square and brought about the downfall of Hosni Mubarak. Is Fattah Al-Sisi any different to the former dictator?
I would say that his rule at the moment is more violent and more repressive than what we saw in the late years of Mubarak. There's even less tolerance for dissent than what was the case in the later years that Mubarak was ruling. We also see more violence from the authorities, more cases of people who are being tortured in custody, and even people dying of torture. The number of political prisoners is enormous. So while there's no doubt that the authoritarianism is still in full effect, I would argue that it's actually more intense and even brutal than what we witnessed in Mubarak's waning years.
Timothy Caldas, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.